All right.
All right.
Welcome back to Buddy Buddy. I'm here today with my man Joe. Joe, thank you
What's
for
up, everybody?
Joe sacrificed today and drove up from Augusta
Yep.
to come be with me today. So
Yep.
thank you
It
for your
was a pleasure.
sacrifice.
It was a pleasure.
I know I've driven down a few times to come practice some cornhole with you. And
Yep.
part of it's because I was being in doctor's appointments.
Yeah.
I was down that way, and so I'd come hang out with you.
That's
So
right. You played a little golf too, right?
I did play a little
Yeah.
golf one time I was down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm starting to get back into
We
it a
still need to
little
do
bit.
that at some point. I need to go out there with you.
Don't be punching my buttons with golf because I just recently I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I still can't score well because my short game's
Yeah.
trash, but I really have figured something out with my swing. I'm hitting the ball better than I've ever hit it.
So your short game's tough, which means you're driving well.
Well, the driver's not great. My irons are good right now.
Okay.
Like I'm hitting the ball solid.
Nice.
I'm keeping the ball in play. Like I've played 2 rounds. Like the last 2 rounds of golf, I only lost one golf ball. Like
Solid.
and so
Yeah.
like I'm keeping it in play. And so my putting is short game is not great, but I'm improving.
I love that.
I'm trending in the right direction.
It's a good step. That's a good thing.
But either
It's a
way,
good skill to
but
have.
dude, thank you for coming down here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
well, we broke the ice a little bit out there with Abby
Yeah.
because my fiance's out there hanging
Yeah.
out. She'll probably go get dinner with us later, but we broke the ice having some conversation, so we thought we
Yeah.
might as well just go ahead and hop in here.
Yeah, I hadn't seen you in a while. It's probably been a few months for sure.
Is it probably been since we went to Rock Hill
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year, which
That's
was
right.
October.
Yeah.
So
It's been a while. Time flies, man.
yeah, early October was the last time I saw you.
Yep.
Dude, I honestly can't remember our initial meeting.
I was thinking about this too on the way up here because I knew this was going to be a topic.
I know we had to like lean it in, but I know we met in the cornhole space,
Yeah.
but I don't know how we met the first.
I
When the
have my
first time.
earliest memory of you in Rock Hill, and everyone's like, "Ain't you guys gonna be here? You know, pro whatever." And
At a regional.
yeah, it was at a regional. It was a Rock Hill regional, and it was like it was like at the time. There's no Gores. There was the Hollands.
Yeah.
And like Sean Markov was good at that point, and I don't know, but I don't think I played you the first time I saw you, but you're just the most like you just don't care. Like I remember my first memory of you was you laying on a board like waiting for the next game, and then I'm like, but you're undefeated or something like. And I'm just like, who's this guy? He's wearing like Birkenstock sandals and like it just doesn't fit the mold. And I think you played, Haskell, old man Haskell?
Yeah.
So he's like, where I come from, like, a legend. And so he played you and you beat him. But I think he gave you a decent game maybe or something. But he was just telling me how just friendly you were and just how great you were and stuff. And then I remember the first time I played you, you weren't friendly. You were like, you remind me of the, Trevor Brooks used to say like, you can be just everyone can just love you and you can just be the most jovial guy. But when you play me on the boards, it's killer time. And that's how you were, I feel like. You're just like the friendliest dude, but you were able to switch it on. Like you give me a dap, you'll say, good shot, whatever. But it's not much smiling going on. Like,
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made me good at
I agree.
at a shorter time span than other people.
It's hard to do.
I don't know what triggered that. I don't know. It could have been Trevor. I played Trevor some before I went pro. I don't know, but that was one thing that I think was why I was able to go from playing competitive at Worlds in 2020 to a pro in 1 year. Was being able to flip that switch, and whenever I'm on the boards, I'm on the boards. And I credit a lot of people like Jordan Kimbrell. Like he in my early days, so when I looked up to him because
it's a good example because super friendly dude,
super friendly stand up guy,
Yeah.
and he was always willing to like put a little extra work in. Like, well, I remember at the pro qualifier when I qualified, like in between games, like a couple of times, not every game, but a couple of them, he would like find me in between them while I'm waiting. He's like, "Let's go find a board, let's go throw,"
Nice.
and was like, would just sit there and keep me warm. Taught me through like a little bit of strategy, but whatever. But he was one of the guys I looked up to going on, but. I can't really remember when we like first met, but my first like real, I guess, memory of us is when I set you and Jeremiah up to play state together.
Yeah.
I knew you enough, and we had met obviously before then, but I can't think of the instance or the regional or tournament. But I knew of you enough
You
that
must have thought I was decent.
Yes, because I saw where you were posting looking for a partner.
Yeah.
And I knew Jeremiah was gonna be at the beach the same weekend, and so I was like, I'm just gonna set him up. and I knew of you enough that I knew of your character. And I
Yeah.
was because I told Jeremiah I was like, this
Yeah.
dude's solid, but above all, like this is a good dude that y'all are gonna have a good time together.
Yeah. We
And
did.
I mean, y'all
I
ended up,
remember being nervous about it too because at the time I'm a slick bag player
yeah,
and he was throwing only Vikings.
yeah, only BG Vikings,
Yeah.
slow bags, yeah,
Very slow bags. And I knew he was a roll. You know, it was funny. There's actually a story behind this with people who know me from Lexington. That day, I was really big on lucky bags. Like that was
yeah.
like I don't know. I was
You're on them OG
I was on
Surefire days,
yeah the
yeah,
OG Surefires and snipers and stuff like that.
yeah,
And so people were asking me when I showed up, they're like, "Oh, Joe, who are you playing with?" And I'm like, Jeremiah Stewart. And they were like, "Oh," or I said Jeremiah, and they said Stewart, and I'm like, "Yeah." They're like BG Stewart, and I'm like, "What do you mean BG Stewart?" Because in my head, I'm like, "We're throwing my bags." Like I didn't Jeremiah hadn't talked about it, but I was like. My thought was if we play each other in singles, whoever wins will use those bags, whatever.
yeah,
But I was like, I do not want to throw Vikings. Like I'm gonna be terrible.
yeah.
And so I was like, so then all my friends jokingly started calling me BG Joe. So like Matt Roberts and a few others, they had me in their phone as BG Joe, and it made me so mad because I was like, no, I hate BG, and now I'm playing with this. And then we did well, like we got third or whatever.
Yeah, you
And
beat me and Brandon Jones in the loser bracket.
yeah, I feel like games were just handed to me with those Vikings. I just kept them down the middle and kept PPRs low and
Yeah,
let Jeremiah carry me. So he did a great job.
but
But that was funny. So he's BG Stewart and now I'm BG Joe. And then in the end, I actually turned up loving BG. And so
yeah,
toward the end of my career, that's what I loved. So
yeah, that's what you're throwing towards the end of your
yeah,
days.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, so what? Now you mentioned that you don't really play no more.
yeah,
I remember we started
yeah.
talking about this because the reason I found out that you deleted your Facebook was because I was talking to somebody about my cornhole stuff, and they were talking about like, you ever playing by it really good? Like, you got any highlights? And I was like trying to pull up that highlight against Hardball, and
Oh yeah, and it was on. I was on.
you posted it,
Yeah, I posted.
and
It,
then
yeah,
it got reshared off your post,
yeah.
and so
So it's gone forever. Sorry
and
about that.
so no, you're good. I have it somewhere.
Okay.
And I have it saved on my phone somewhere, but I was like, immediately went to Facebook and I was like, typed in your name because I was going to show somebody this highlight.
Gone.
And I was like, why can I not find Judge Fagans? Like, did he unfriend me on Facebook? I was like,
blocked him.
did he block me? I was like, what the frick? I didn't think we ended on that bad of terms.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought we played okay together in Rock Hill
Yeah.
in October. And so I was like, oh, no, he just deleted his Facebook. And so I knew at that point you had probably led towards not playing.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest reason why we have Facebook. Me still.
For sure.
It's to see cornhole stuff.
Yeah.
I have Facebook now and I see friends and family stuff, but predominantly still my whole feed is cornhole.
Yeah.
And so what led to your decision to obviously delete Facebook, but to step away from cornhole?
Yeah, I think it's good. You know, I come on public record and answer this question. I feel like a lot of people are like, what the heck happened? Like, you know, because cornhole was kind of my life. I mean, it's what I've been doing for 2.5 years. I mean, play 3 blind draws a week, play 3 regionals a month, you know, I mean, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what kind of led to it was really just taking a break because, so obviously I made a hard push my first year and a really hard push this last year trying to, you know, be pro if I can, which is, it just gets tougher and tougher every year to do. And I had a step back in conference 2 where I had hurt my rotator cuff and really couldn't play. I couldn't even throw because the way I used to throw, I used my shoulder. And so I sat for like 2 or 3 weeks. When I went back to throw, it was still bad. So I worked with a whole new throw. I don't know if you remember that, like just something more effortless where it didn't hurt my shoulder. So then I'm at home like grinding because I'm like, this all can't be for nothing. Like, you know, I at least got to make a run at this. Like it's toward the end of the season. And so you can ask Wesley, my wife. She's wonderful and supportive. But I'm like set up in the house. I'm throwing hours a day, and I got pretty good with it. I got back. I would say at least as good as I was. I went from throwing Celtics slick bags to carpet, and I'm not saying I was perfect, but I got pretty decent. Didn't do very good at Worlds in the qualifier, and then I made a pretty good run in the last chance qualifier.
The conference one?
The game before the game, you know, so if I'd have won.
Oh, was it you and Matt Wilson, right?
Beat Matt Wilson, and then I went and played.
Oh, frick. Was it Caleb Avery or the...
He plays with Frank Mullins sometimes at regionals.
Oh, you're talking about
Clayton.
Clayton Arch.
Clayton Arch, yeah. He was just money. And I finally was. I think I won 7 straight before that, though. So I needed to win 9 in a row, essentially, to get it. And I didn't do it. So I think at that point, once it all, and then obviously I have buddies, really close friends, Kirk and Tommy and Angel, who all went pro, which thrilled me. Not at all any sort of like ill will on that. That was just cool to see all of them go.
Hmm.
Obviously, I wanted to go with them. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just gonna take a break. Like, let me just chill. I really grinded on this. I went all the way up, and so after that, you and I had decided to play together. So I was like, I'm gonna see that through, and we played pretty well together. But I was like, I'm just gonna take a break, and then I think a break's just led into like let's just not playing for various reasons.
Hmm.
So the social media or the Facebook was, if you don't know about me, I don't have any other social media. It was just Facebook, and the whole Joe Nathan thing. I mean, my Facebook was literally just Joe Nathan. Like, who is this guy? Like, because I created it for cornhole. Like when I started to get competitive, I'm like, you have to have a Facebook, pretty much.
Yeah, to know where
To
tournaments
know,
are,
yeah.
keep up with anything, really.
So once I realized, well, let me take a break, it was actually a good domino effect to social media can be a real time suck. It can be a real,
Hmm.
and it never was, that's one of the reasons why I don't have social media. And so I was like, this would be a good time just because I'm taking a break from this. Let me just take a break from this.
Hmm.
And I didn't want the theatrics of like, hey guys, I'm going to be going for a little while. And, so
Yeah.
I just rolled out. So, and it's been great. I've loved not having that again. I think there's a lot of just negative that comes with social media. I'm not saying everyone shouldn't have it, but there's temptations that come with it, even just becoming an idol and that type of stuff.
Hmm.
That it can be. So it's actually, even though it's hard to rip that Band-Aid off, it's so freeing to
Hmm.
not have it. So I don't see myself going back to it anytime soon. I don't know about cornhole. I'll say this, and to get off my little high horse. I mean, speaking from just a competitor, it's really hard for me. Like people have asked me, I haven't played a blind draw. I haven't thrown a bag since you and I played.
Wow.
Yeah, not a blind draw or anything. And people are like, why don't you just come and play? One whatever. And part of it is I'm so competitive. Like I know I'm gonna be terrible. Like you're good at just playing, like picking it up and going. Like you can just not play for 3 months or something. I cannot do that. And so that's part of it. It's like maybe pride that I probably need to swallow, but where I'm like, I don't want to go back and just be the 7.5 PPR guy when I'm used to,
Yeah.
and in order for me to play and care about it, I have to really put a lot of effort into it, and
Hmm.
I'm just content not doing that right now. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I might be back one day. I'm sure I'll be
Yeah.
back to play some blind draws, but for now, I'm just
Yeah. I remember when you told me and when I figured out you deleted Facebook, I had a lot of respect for it because I remember through my time in pro, I would always bounce the idea off you that, bro, I'm gonna quit. Like,
yeah.
I'm,
Yeah, I was
I'm
like, dude, no, what are you talking about?
bro, you put all this work in, you got to see it through.
Yeah,
Like, you got to keep going. Like,
yeah,
whatever. Because both years, like, well, going into my first year pro, I was like, I'm done.
yeah,
I'm not gonna do it.
yeah,
I'm not gonna play again. And then, sure enough, I played a second year. And then towards the end of my second year, I was saying the same thing. I
yeah,
was around you and Angel and Tommy and all them and anybody really.
yeah,
Towards the end of the season, I was at peace with it. I was like, I'm done. And you were like, no, like you got to keep
yeah,
going. Like, come on now, like don't do
yeah,
it. So because then you make everybody made the same jokes like, well, what if I make it? Like, bro, you got to be a pro. If I'm a pro,
yeah, yeah,
like don't leave me out.
yeah,
Like I enjoy being around you. Don't just quit
yeah,
now.
yeah,
And I respect now. Then when I saw you quit, it brought a lot of respect because I was like, no, he understands. Because the reasons I quit were some of the same reasons you quit.
yeah,
Because it was so consuming.
yeah,
Your life when you're in it and fully in
yeah,
it, like it's your life is cornhole. Like
yeah.
you work a job, and then when you're not working or like have designated time with somebody, it's like I'm playing a blind draw, I'm playing a
Yeah.
regional, I'm thinking about
I'm out
practicing.
till 12, 1 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
Like,
like and your mind is consumed with it. Like
yeah,
you're watching it on Facebook,
yeah,
you're watching all the big matches, highlights,
yeah,
live feeds. Your whole world is consumed from a game where you're just
yeah,
throwing a bag at a hole.
yeah,
And I caught myself multiple times at tournaments, like at nationals, at regionals. When I'd be laying on the boards, like whenever in between games, I look around and be like, this is my life. Like not that it's a bad thing. I was like, my life is centered around this
yeah.
game that's meant to be
That's the
at a
real,
at a backyard barbecue,
yeah,
like drinking beers with buddies. Like this is what this game was intended for, and
yeah,
now we've created it as this sport that's nationally televised. I was like, this is my life. I would stare at the boards awkwardly, like, how did I get here?
It was better for you at least because you were at least a professional in the
Okay,
game.
at least yes,
You know what I
at least
mean?
I got to say like I was a
Yeah.
professional cornhole player for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, and you were sponsored. I mean, you. So me, I'm just like, I'm just this
Yeah.
dude that's just consumed with this hobby. Uh,
But I got to the end, and I remember the end of my second year, I was like, no, I got to free up time. Like,
yeah,
and I got to free up time because I got convicted. That's why I started this podcast. That's
sure.
why I got like I was getting convicted because I was missing a lot of Sundays at church.
Yeah,
I was like, man, it's just taking me away from
yeah,
the people that I love, the things that I love that are outside of the game of cornhole. Not that I didn't enjoy playing, because I
yeah,
did, because I'm competitive. I love playing. I was pretty good at it. I got better technically going through my second year. Like my ranking was better from first year to second
yeah,
year
for
in
sure.
singles. So like
Yeah,
I wasn't getting worse and then quit.
no.
Like I was technically still getting better.
I like that you requalified too, like with these, and then but then you stepped away. So it wasn't like,
no.
because I remember not wanting to see you dwindle out for the last part of your year.
Yeah.
Even if you are like, oh, in his head he's already decided he doesn't care. So I like that you were like you finished it through strong,
Yeah. I
and then
finished it as best I could, and
yeah,
then I was like,
and then walked away and said, I'm done.
I'm done.
That's a great way
Uh,
to go out.
and I feel like God blessed me in that.
Yeah,
Like, I it was hard for me to let that go
yeah,
because it had become such a big part of my life. It was what I was known for, and a lot of people like
yeah,
they only know me. Like the only reason like we initially met was
yeah,
through that. A
absolutely.
lot of people that I know, like they know me as the professional cornhole player. Like
Yeah.
I still get people that I know that in the general area they'll see me like, you still play cornhole, like all that stuff, and I have to tell
You're
them,
the guy who borrows soaps hardball. I mean,
yeah, but I can't find on Facebook anymore because you deleted it, right? But I still have that somewhere.
that was legendary. That was legendary.
But I quit because I needed to free up my time.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to take a different career path eventually. I wanted to free up just in case I ever found a woman. Because
Yeah.
Abby, like obviously me and her met before the season ended, but I would, but I come to terms that I was quitting before the season ended.
Yeah.
It was probably like right before, if not right after the last national going into Worlds. I was like, this is it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm content. Like
Yeah.
I'm at peace with my decision. I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, not so long later, she walks in the coffee shop, and now
Nice.
I'm engaged, planning a wedding, getting married in
That's
July.
amazing, man. Congratulations again on that. That's
Thank
cool.
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so we're super excited.
Yeah.
Got our save the dates in the mail today, so they'll
Nice.
be going out soon.
Very good.
But no, that's been good. And I feel like God blessed me in that.
Well, I mean, anybody watching too, I mean, obviously some cornhole people, I don't think it's, of course, wrong to dedicate yourself to something you're
Oh, no.
passionate about.
No,
I'm
not at
not
all.
saying that in and of itself, cornhole being a big part of your life is a bad thing. I think anything can become an idol. I think
Yeah.
anything can consume you in a way that's negative.
Mhm.
And that a lot of that's between yourself and the Lord. I can certainly say I cared much more about practicing cornhole than practicing righteousness, than reading my word, than being with men who know the word and who could pour into me. And any believer needs that. One of the coolest things that came from, and I almost brought a tear to my hearing you when you and Jeremiah were talking here, and you mentioned me, being, you said some really nice things about me, and you guys said, some things about that you felt like when you saw me in cornhole, I wasn't fake, and I wasn't. I
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
hopefully tried to lead a life that went along with what I spoke.
Yeah.
But as great as that is, it's more important. You can actually get pulled away from godliness into worldliness a little bit when that's all you do.
Yeah.
Even if when you're there, you're being a light, you're actually, without realizing it, being pulled away if you're not actively, not just in church, but with believers and
Yeah.
with other, for me specifically, other men. A big one is for us. So our big blind draw where I'm from in Lexington is Wednesday nights. It used to be Tuesdays. We moved to a new location. We had to change to Wednesdays. I mean, that's Wednesday church for me. And so, for a while, my wife was going by herself, and everyone at church is like, I have a pretty small church. There's only, 30 or 40 people, but they're like, well, where's Jonathan? And, oh, he's at Cornhole. It's like,
Yeah.
that's pretty lame, and that's where I'm at every Wednesday. And so, but it was just too hard, with too much competition between me and Tommy and Angel, who's going to win, who
Yeah.
has the most wins. And that's what consumed me.
Yeah.
And so it's like, sometimes just cold turkey and stuff is really good.
Yes.
Some people think it's too dramatic, and I'm not saying I won't ever come back, but it's actually nice to just let's just completely and get it clean or get off off of it and just see where that leads you. And I've missed it, but I haven't missed it. I've missed the being at the top competing because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I was up there to be able to compete. I feel like I could play anybody and at least compete.
Mm-hmm.
I missed that. I miss winning and whatever, but I don't miss it enough to really jump back into it, which is good. I'm in a good spot. So
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Well, we'll try to lean off the cornhole stop because that's the big part of our story. That's the only reason like I even know you to
Oh,
be is that whole part of our lives
yeah.
that now we've both stepping away from. I still play occasionally,
Yeah.
but I'm not consumed by it. Like
Yeah.
I play occasional tournaments every now and then. Every couple weeks I'll like
Yeah.
have an itch and I'll go play a blind draw on a weeknight or
Yeah.
occasionally somebody can pull me out of retirement and go play a regional.
Right.
Like I won a doubles regional in December.
That's amazing.
And then
you can do that. That's amazing.
and then now I'm going next Saturday to play with Jeremiah.
You're gonna win again.
Who knows? Because I mean, Caden Allen and like Alec
Yeah.
Ryan be going up the Mountain Thunder sometimes. So
Yeah.
who knows who's going to be there?
Yeah.
But we're gonna have a good
It'll
time.
be fun.
So I still dabble. And I still enjoy playing. But
Our relationship, what I was thinking about when you and I went from just cornhole acquaintances to a little more, we knew each other more. What stands out to me was you rode with me and Tommy and Angel maybe down. You went and played. You played my first. You got my first regional win with me.
yeah,
Remember that?
yeah,
In
in
Charleston.
Charleston.
Yeah, and even though it's a tiny regional, there's a lot of pride on the line because it was.
Tommy had never won either.
Yeah, and that's
the
right.
time.
That's right.
He had
never
not won a regional yet.
Yes.
And I felt bad that day because I doubled it to him in both.
Yeah.
In singles and doubles.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. It is crazy. Isn't that crazy? Because I felt that long ago, and Tommy and I both didn't have a regional win.
Yeah. And now he's pro.
Yeah, and he's a good pro too.
Very good.
He
got my number towards the end of my time. Like I couldn't beat him. Like it didn't matter. Like I got him that one day and double dipped him, but I might have beat him one other time after that.
Yeah. He's a dedicated guy. Him and Angel both went up on a whole nother level like crazy. But I just remember that there was at some point in that ride where maybe we were I'd already dropped them off or whatever. We were talking about whether dinosaurs existed.
Oh yeah.
Like, all sorts of stuff. Like
conspiracy stuff.
Yeah, conspiracy stuff. And then some spiritual stuff too, like about church. And I remember being like, I don't know, that probably wasn't the first time, but I just remember that's a notable time. I think.
Yeah, that was a notable car ride.
Yeah. But I'm like, me and this guy are kind of aligned and similar. So
that was for sure. Well, now that you know that I'm engaged, we'll lean into a new conversation.
Okay.
What it could be lighthearted, it could be as serious as you want to be. What would be your one piece of advice for me as I step into marriage this summer?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say something cliche, but I mean, maybe one that's a couple, two, threefold is being grounded in the Word. And I mean, that. I think I've found it, especially since this like not being in cornhole and kind of realizing, one thing for me that God's really blessed me in is since the time change, I was waking up earlier by accident, and I've kept it going where I work from home, so I wake up around 8:30 usually. Now I'm waking up at 6, and I spend an hour, by myself with the Word. And then Wesley usually comes in about 30 minutes later. I already have coffee made, and she'll sit down and read. And then we have a little small devotional book we'll do together, and I'll ask her about our day and then how we can pray. So being in the Word, we do it together, but we each have our own quiet times. But then we also talk about it and talk about doctrine, talk about being firm in our faith, and being able to readily give an answer for the hope that's in us, as Paul says. So I think you guys finding a way to do that. I think I found it awkward at first, like almost weird, because it's like, I don't know, I don't feel like this big leader man, that I'm like Mr. Pastor that's going to help.
Yeah.
But at the same point, it's like, this is what I'm called to, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so make the weird not be weird. Just make it normal, to say, hey, we're going to be disciplined in this. You're a good guy that's disciplined about your finances. You've been disciplined about cornhole. Be equally or more so disciplined in the Word. And I think this twofold. The second one would be having men in your life that is really big. That at least I've found who I can watch them model the way they lead their wives,
Mm.
the way they live their lives, the way they speak, the way they hold themselves. Um, I'm not saying we should idolize people, but to look up to a role model or other men, ones that you know personally and that know you. I've heard on some of your podcasts you talk about this, but having men that can actually say, Andrew, I see this in your life, and this is, you might want to look at this, or maybe
Yeah.
look at scripture with you, and you not go, be mad or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are hard to find. We all say we want that, but we don't really want that, so it's
No,
hard.
because as men, we don't want to be called out for
Yeah.
our wrongs.
Yeah.
Like we're prideful, so
Yeah.
like, or we have a skewed mind of how we view ourselves and
Yeah.
think in certain areas that we're untouchable.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, we say we want it, but sometimes we actually
Yeah.
don't.
Absolutely.
But we need it.
Yeah.
It's definitely necessary. So I appreciate that
Yeah.
because this is a fun season of life for me and for Abby,
Hmm.
as we are planning a wedding, like and trying to see and plan and how we want our marriage to look like.
Yeah.
Uh, because obviously we are believers, but I mean the stats are the stats that half the marriages fail.
Yeah.
And so like we're trying to be proactive and not ride a high off a feeling of love and have like a plan in place so
Yep.
that we pursue each other well. Obviously, it all stems from our own personal relationships with Christ that me and her lead each other well, ultimately towards Christ, that we
Yeah.
can have a home that we're proud of, that
Yeah.
that,
Amen.
and so I feel like we're doing the best we can. Obviously, there's always room for growth. The things we
Absolutely.
do well, there's things that we don't do well. We're still learning each other. But I appreciate
Yeah.
at least a little piece of advice because that's who I'm asking right now is the men in my life. I like anytime I get, I was like, what little marriage nugget you got? Because
Mm.
I want to be prepared. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to feel like I'm going in
That's
blind.
great.
That we come back from the honeymoon and it's like, now,
Yeah.
how do I leave this house? Like
Yeah.
I want to feel like I have a somewhat of a gist of what I need to do at least early on.
When you do, I mean, it's cool to see you. How old are you?
28.
28. Okay, so you're still young. So I just turned 30 on Sunday.
Well, happy late birthday.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so
I wouldn't know because you don't have Facebook. So
I know, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, yeah. So my birthday's Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve.
okay.
But yeah, I feel like now I'm like 30. I'm like, man, I'm not happy about being 30. I miss being in my 20s. But it's cool to see how much you have a grasp. Even just hearing the podcast with you and Abby, and her saying things like, I think you asked her some question like, I went on my knee and I asked you, what made you confidently say yes,
Yeah.
immediately? And she's kind of, I won't regurgitate everything she said, but she said something to the effect of knowing you and knowing who you are and begin to know you. She was like, I want to not only be with this man, I want to be led by this man. This is like, it's for me not to have him as my husband and my leader and my, my counterpart. It would wreck me. Like, this is what I want. Not just because he fills me with all the goosebumps, although apparently you do that as well. Because that's the thing. At least I haven't experienced this much, at least in my marriage yet, but I know it's coming because faithful men have told me there's gonna be a time where you don't necessarily like each other, maybe, or at least for a season, or you're just annoyed or whatever. But you must always love. Love is a choice. It's not always a feeling. Where sometimes those goosebumps are gonna be gone.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't want to come home. You don't want to deal with this. You don't. But I choose to love you. It's a choice that you make to say, I'm going to sacrifice myself, to slay self, because I love Christ, right? So Christ is your head, and in a sense, you are her head, but Christ is the head of both of you, of your household, of the church. And so you get all that in place. And life may not always be abundant as far as finances or this or that, but it will be where it should be. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for How long have you and Wesley been married?
We'll be almost 2 years, so we're a little over a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got married just before Jeremiah and Mia did.
Yes, I think that's right.
They just hit their 1 year like last month.
Yeah.
Well, December.
Yeah.
So
and they're still going strong.
They're still going strong.
I love that.
They celebrated their 1 year anniversary in Jamaica. They went on. It was like a double celebration. They went back to, I think it's the same place where they had their honeymoon. I don't know. Okay. But they went back. It was like a double celebration. Their 1 year anniversary, and then Mia graduated nursing school and got a job. So they went and celebrated. Good. So they went back to Jamaica to celebrate.
That's awesome.
Like right before Christmas, they went.
That's great.
But so yeah, I didn't know how long you and Wesley had been married.
Yeah, about a year and a half, and we dated for maybe not quite a year. It wasn't very long because we knew what we wanted. We were ready to roll. I mean, similar to you guys. And then we had a less long engagement too. So it may have been a total year, with the engagement and dating, but
That's about how ours is. Like
yeah,
we'll be together 13 months when we get married.
yeah,
Like just over. Like it's like the day after. Like
yeah,
yeah, because our anniversary will be June 19th. That's the 1 year.
yeah,
And then so July 20th. So
yeah.
yeah, just over 13 months.
I think that's good. I don't think that's a negative thing at all, actually.
No,
I
when you
think
know
that's
what you
awesome.
want in the light of the church and of Christ,
Yeah,
like when you understand marriage in that regard, it's not.
yeah,
I don't think you have. There's no agenda where there has to be saying like
yeah,
you got to date 2 years, be engaged for another two, and
yeah,
like a lot of times the dating aspect of why people date so long is they're just not in a position where they could sustain a marriage where
yeah,
that's why they have to date for longer than they
yeah,
want to. They would happily be married in a year if they could, but they choose not to because of smart reasons of like I don't have a full time
yeah,
job, I'm still in college, I'm trying to graduate, we don't got a place to live yet,
yeah,
this, that, and the third.
yeah,
But we knew what we wanted early and very early on. Like
yeah, yeah. I knew that.
I'm a firm believer in
I remember when you told me.
I'm either gonna figure out if I want it or I'm getting out. Like
Yeah,
I'm not flirting lines here. Like
yeah,
I'm young. I'm still 28, but in regards to like my friends, like I'm the last one and a lot of my close friends to get married.
yeah,
And so like I either want to know what I want and I know what I want and I'm either going to find it in this person and I can pursue this person towards marriage or I'm going to get out and
yeah.
wait till God opens the next door that I can pursue somebody else. And so I early on asked her questions that were thought provoking
Mm,
to see if we're aligned on certain things
I can tell.
because I didn't want to like grow feelings for somebody that I
Sure.
really couldn't pursue
Yeah,
towards marriage. I didn't want to just pull it along just because I think she's beautiful and I have a good time with her.
yeah,
I want to know if like this is the person that I want to marry that will be the mother to my kids one
yeah,
day. Like I wanted to know that as quick as I could.
yeah.
And so I feel like that's why we
I
moved as
remember we
fast
would
as we
only
did.
see each other mainly at regionals, but it was like one regional you told me I met this girl, we went on stage, it was great, and then like the next regional you're like she might be the one, like low key. But
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't like you being like smitten. It was more like like it, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how Wesley and I were. Like we knew what we want, we were aligned in this, and so it's like this could definitely be the one. Like
Mm-hmm.
unless there's something like I gotta check a few more things out, make sure.
Yeah.
But if this is what it looks like, it's the one. So
Yeah.
and that's good.
That's how I felt.
Yeah,
Uh, but going back on the more church side, because
yeah,
I feel like that's one thing that we obviously aligned
have in
on,
common.
and
Yeah,
it made a lot of our conversations a little more enjoyable on cornhole trips because
yeah,
it gave us something else to talk about that wasn't fully cornhole conversations.
yeah,
And so we have something to enjoy our rides to talk about things that are beneficial to the world or
yeah,
are on our hearts.
yeah.
Uh, so you mentioned to me that you had thoughts on the gospel message and how it potentially could
Yeah.
be blurred and or today's evangelism could be have skewed what the gospel message is what it's intended to be.
Yeah, I'm glad you give me a chance to talk about that a little bit. I'll say too, so when I met Wesley, this will kind of transition well. I met Wesley. The thing I loved about her, she said, one of the first things she told me is, I've been at my church for 22 years and I don't ever want to leave. And I don't want a man that's going to come in and tell me I got to leave my church. But she wasn't meaning it like I'm saying it. She was more meaning it like trying to tell me how much that she's in on our church. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. Like, I
Yeah.
love that. And this is more a story for her to tell, so I'll only tell a little bit of it. But I went to her church, and there was a lot of things different. It was what would be called a charismatic church, and so and I won't get all into the nitpicks, but of that. But there was a lot more of a prosperity gospel preached. I don't know if you haven't heard of that.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's
Name it, claim it
yeah,
type stuff.
yeah. So gospel meaning good news. Well, if the good news is if you come to Jesus, you'll no longer be homeless. You'll no longer, have a bad job. So just come to Jesus, and then it's as if to say the good news is you'll get everything you ever wanted.
Yeah.
And that's the Willy Wonka gospel. I mean, that's not the gospel of Christ. I mean, it spits in the face of stories I know of not only in America as well, but people who live 10, a mom and a dad and 8 kids, and they're in a
A little
500
shack.
square foot shack.
Yeah. Or the size of this
Yeah.
room and you got
And
five
they
people living
serve
there.
the Lord and love the Lord like they live for him. I mean, they're ambassadors for Christ. And then to look at them and say, oh, but you don't, if you had more faith, then God would give you all the, it's just, it spits in their face. And but that unfortunately is that one of them, name it, claim it, as well. We've blurred our gospel. The other thing we've blurred in blurring our gospel is we've blurred who Jesus is. Everyone seems to love, I remember this, especially during Christmas time, everyone seems to love Jesus until you define who he is.
Mm.
So, even if I heard this was kind of stood out to me was the Guinness Book of World Records for a Christmas tree, as far as like height and expense or whatever, is in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, and it was $11 million. Rolex watches and all this stuff. It's the Guinness Book of World Records, and you think, so this is Christmas. They celebrate Christmas, which is the coming of our Lord, God with us, Emmanuel,
Mm-hmm.
and yet that's in a country where you bet not convert to Christianity. I mean, so basically to them, Jesus is fine as long as he's just a prophet, as long as he's just a good whatever guru, whatever it is. But if you define him as God with us, Yahweh the Lord, who has sent his son to pay for the debt of his people, now you've defined him. And so, everyone just loves Jesus. Everyone says, oh, yeah, Jesus is my homeboy. Jesus is this or that, because you only see him as the meek and mild, the teddy bear, the guy who gives you all your goodies.
Yep.
And the devil's the one who comes and takes them away. But he's also just. He also has righteous wrath and hatred against sin. And we should align with that. And so because we blurred Jesus, we've also blurred the gospel. And so that's something I've been I think humbled at, because I grew up in the church, I grew up in a Christian school, and yet I think I just was like, hey, if everyone says they love Jesus, it's great.
Yeah.
We should actually be confessional in the sense that we confess what we believe about who Christ is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think going on to your point, I think a lot of it in today, at least in the local church, is skewed the gospel in a lot of ways in some churches because of the name it, claim it stuff. If you preach so much on the name it, claim it side of believe in Jesus and you'll get the things that your heart desires, it eliminates the idea that you understand your need for a savior. It's more, I'm only accepting this because I want this. And yes, God is love, Jesus is love, but I'm at the root of it all, I'm believing and putting my faith in Christ because I want this, that, and the third. Versus and that could be a false sense of salvation because you're not truly understanding yourself as a sinner, and or you're not willing to understand your need to confess those sins to Christ. And so that's another thing that I see in the sense of like a blurred gospel is it's a lot about, yes, ultimately it's a gift that Christ gave us that we don't deserve because we're fallen humans that don't deserve his love. But we have to understand that we are broken, and a lot of people don't want to accept that, swallow that pride to say that, no, I'm at the root of myself, I'm a terrible person, and I need this to be righteous.
And that's the part that's missed, right? That's the part that's not preached. A lot of people, even that preach the gospel, the gospel is, Paul says that the gospel is foolishness to those that are perishing, right? But it's the power unto salvation to those who are being saved, because they understand that. If you read on your phone, on your, you had your newspaper app, and you read that they just found a cure for some disease, some neosis or whatever, and you were like, oh, okay, cool, they found that, that's great, glory be to God, good, you scroll, it doesn't matter to you. But if a week prior you went to the doctor and they told you were going in, you had 104 fever and it wouldn't break and you were just in agony, and then they said, oh, you have this disease called neosis. Well, then if a week later you saw
that same headline,
it would change your life, because it's the same headline. The only difference is you now understand the bad news. If you don't understand the bad news, which is what you're saying, that we're fallen. So man fell in the garden. Adam, meaning mankind, that's what his name meant, fell. And because of that, sin entered the world. And if you don't believe it, just look. Even I'm not a parent yet. You're not either, but we've been around children. You don't have to teach them to sin. You don't have to teach them to steal. You don't have to teach them to lie.
Yeah, after mama and dad, the first word they're saying is mine.
Yeah.
It's the selfishness, the
Yeah. We're born that way. And what's so, and people say, well, that's not, I'm going to give one more analogy that's one of my favorites. That's not such a big deal. Why does that deserve all this. Why does that deserve hell? Why does that? I'm a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
Um, the problem is we don't have the high and the correct view of God.
Mm.
The analogy is this really been big for me is if I take a key and I go to a junkyard lot with cars and I scrape one of the cars, nobody cares. If I go to a used car lot and I scrape it, I'll get in some trouble. They'll definitely kick me out. If I go to a Lamborghini or a Rolls Royce and I scrape a car, I'm going to prison. I mean, it's a major offense. Well, what's the difference? It's the same offense. The difference is the value of the thing offended against.
Mm.
And so if now I'm serving five whatever years for vandalism of a multi-million-dollar car, that how much greater is God? That when we even lie or when we even we commit essentially cosmic treason against a holy God. We just don't have a rationale of that. Like in history, if you committed treason against the king, you were beheaded, and
Mm.
that was just the way it was. Um, we just think that's not fair now, but I'm just thankful that we don't get what's fair because if we got what
Mm.
was fair, Jesus certainly didn't get what was fair. It wasn't fair for him to come in the first place, let alone live a righteous life, be spat at, and then hung on a cross. He literally took the most unfair thing that he's the only innocent man that ever died. The rest of us are have fallen short in our sin and trespasses. So I think understanding that, and a lot of people look at that and go, that's a downer message. That's a we don't need. They just need to be picked up. Well, you won't. You can read the headline and you'll think it's great, but it won't matter to you unless you understand the bad
Yeah.
news. So
Yes.
yeah,
And so I definitely think that's something that needs to be preached on more. And
yeah,
but a lot of it isn't necessarily what needs to be preached on more. You can't put the blame and the the cause on the church,
yeah,
because if yes, it needs to be preached from the pulpit.
sure,
It needs to be preached from that, but it has to be a message that the congregation, the body of Christ,
yeah,
leans into, that they go and use that as evangelism to the
yeah,
people that they are in their lives with, their friends, their family,
yeah,
their coworkers,
yeah.
because like we're all called to make disciples and to go and make disciples of all nations. It's not the pastor's
Yeah,
job to
absolutely.
uh,
I fully agree.
because me, you, and Abby were talking about the fall of the school system,
Yeah,
like some of the issues that the school system has in different areas,
a big root's the parents.
and the big roots is the parents, or like, and so, and the same thing in the church, like
Yep,
parents look towards the pastor, youth pastor, children's pastor to
yep.
lead, guide, direct their children towards Christ, but thus, and so they have to be willing to see that in action in their homes.
Imagine you did that with Abby. If you said, "Well, I'm going to let the church discipline or disciple her only, just send her to women's group, send her to the church. I'm not going to do any leadership at home." That would be majorly doing her a disservice.
Yeah.
And that's not what the church is for. It's to come alongside,
Mm-hmm.
and it is to have instruction and to teach. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it's the foundation in the home. So
Yep. And so I think if we preach the full gospel message in the sense of showing us our need for a savior
yeah,
and a true definition of who Jesus was and is, uh, it would be enough to convict us to say that we'll be willing to go and share that to those around us.
yeah,
If it's preached in front of us enough, it's going to convict our hearts to say, like, well, I want what I have.
yeah,
I want my friend to see what I see.
yeah,
I want him to have that same aha moment about God that I had when I was a freshman in college, when I came to know Christ. Like, I've grown up church my whole life, but it took me,
yeah,
like, finally on my own at college, at university, in front of, I mean, luckily I went to a Christian university, so I was in chapel, but it took another message. I heard the gospel message thousands
thousand
of times,
times. Isn't that amazing?
and it took me sitting in front of somebody that I have heard of, but sitting in front of him and him say it in a certain way that it's like, not, I have done this on my own. Like,
Yeah,
I skewed Christ into, like, he's just love, like he loves me
yeah,
regardless, versus like, no, this is like a holy gift that I've been given that I don't deserve, that I've never truly accepted.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, Hebrews says that the word of God pierces sharper than any two-edged sword straight to the heart. And so, if the gospel truly is the power unto salvation, then man can try to come up with his own ways to make it more appealing, but actually you actually detract from it.
mhm.
If it's truly the power unto salvation, then it is what God says it is. And so, yes, majority, unfortunately, it tells us that there's a broad road and a narrow road. The broad road leads to destruction, and the narrow road leads to life, and few will find it. And so, majority are gonna. I mean, we were talking when you were talking about your lawn business, how when you're selling door to door, majority are no's.
Mhm.
And majority of people, it's foolishness to say that this man Jesus came, he died for my sins, who cares? But it's not until if there's an aha moment, which I think is a work of the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
It's a supernatural work. So
So like so continuing on that point and continuing on how like yes we want that to be preached the true gospel should be preached
yeah.
in our churches, but a lot of it stems from how we receive it as the body of Christ. So what do you think? You had some thoughts on the current state of the local church.
Yeah. Um, well, I mean, I guess it's different so for me, it's different from place to place and different from church to church. I mean, not every church is small, not every church is big, and not every big church is bad, not every small church is good or bad.
Hmm.
You know, but I think we have misviewed the importance of being active in the church. Church is more of a thing you do on Sunday. You don't want to do, but you do it because you feel like you need to. You need to check off a box to the Lord. Okay, I serve Him. I need to go here. And so I go, I'm in, I'm thinking the whole time about dinner or about lunch, and then I'm out.
Yep.
Rather than actually, it was put to me recently. I'm in a smaller church, local church, and there's not very many people, that show up sometimes. But my pastor faithfully prepares, Wednesday night and other, events that we have. And it actually, he and his wife has told me, anyone who shows up is already a blessing to me. The fact
Mm.
that you're here is you actually bless me. You edify me. Not that I'm so wonderful that my presence blesses him, but the fact that people in the church care enough to show up. But also, Christ says that if you love him, you love his people.
Mm.
And so, how can I truly say, yeah, I love the people of God, but I don't ever hang out with them or care to have them over
Ooh.
to my house or be in community with them? Yeah, I love them. I love them while I play cornhole 24/7, and I'll see them on Sunday for literally no time because I walk in, hit my seat, and hit the road. It's not right. It's
Mhm.
not. Church is not about just the gathering of the saints and worshiping God is something very, very important, and it's actually a holy time, a gathering of His people, His temple. Um, but being involved is much more important, and so I'll say that too. Another reason why I haven't done cornhole, stuff is Wesley and I will have people over from our church. And this is not saying this to pat on our backs, but I'm saying we've been edified and we've hopefully edified others there's an old man who lives by himself now. We went to his house and just had dinner and stayed there for 3 hours. And it was just a blessing to us to learn from him, but also it was a blessing to him that someone cared enough, in the
Yeah.
church. Not just people our age that we would be, man, we really love that. That was our favorite. Not necessarily, but sometimes to serve others, that's what it should be. And we should serve the world as well. We should go into the world and be a light. But there's something that we have wrong about really intentionally being in our local church. So,
Mm. I love that.
yeah.
That's something that I was convicted of when I was leaving cornhole into back
Mm.
into fully involved. Was it took that whole elongated time of cornhole to really truly get that sense that like I'm not fully serving my body or my
Yeah.
local community, my
Yeah.
my church as best as I could. Uh, and then through sacrificing something else that I loved or enjoyed, I opened up my availability to be used by God in a better sense.
Yeah.
And now like I feel more plugged in. I feel like I know more people. I mean, and I feel like I serve because right now I'm serving in the 11th grade guys small group. I'm their leader. I feel like I serve them better because I have more availability to be there for them. I'm there to answer their questions better. I feel like I'm more prepared when I'm there to teach them, and I'm more involved in their life. I have times to like I went to one of their basketball games the other night, like
Mm.
just like showing them that like I'm in their corner.
Yeah.
Like I'm not just your leader that's gonna fill a room with you on a Sunday morning and teach you a little bit about Christ. Like I want to like be in your corner that know that like
Yeah.
I will do life with you
Yeah.
as best I can. Like I understand like the root of it all, like what we've talked to, like it goes down to your parents. Like your parents are the ones raising you,
Yeah.
and I'm just somebody that's a little bit older than you that I can give you some wisdom, and I'll be in your corner if you need it.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of it stem from having more time to pursue that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so yeah, through
Yeah. And in doing that, you're serving them, but chief and endly, you are serving Christ.
mm,
And so that's the goal. That's what we should do. That's what we should long to do as believers. Recently I've come to really not be passionate about, but become convinced of catechizing children. And I don't mean that's a scary word some people think of like Roman Catholicism or something. Catechizing just means what we're talking about as when we have kids, we want to teach them the foundations of the faith.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, the reason why I bring this up is one of the questions is, what is our only hope in life and death? And the answer is, um, our only hope in life and death is that we belong body and soul, both in body and spirit, and life and death to God and our Savior Jesus Christ. But essentially, if I believe that, if I believe I've been purchased with the blood of Christ, then I belong to him. I mean, Paul calls himself a bondservant or a slave to Christ in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a freeing way because you're a slave to one thing or the other, Paul says, either to yourself and to your own flesh and your own desires and to the God of this world, or to the Creator and the good one, right? The Christ. And so if I serve him, if I truly belong to him, if I'm truly an ambassador of Christ, then I want to live for him, not just live and then do my checklist so that he's appeased.
Yeah.
I live for him. And I'm not saying you can't play cornhole. I'm not saying you can't have a job. You know, of course you can. Everything you do, though, is to glorify God.
Yeah.
And so seeing that truth of that I belong to him, I've been purchased with a really big price, not because I'm great. There's nothing great about me that he looked upon me, but he loved me first before I loved him.
Yeah.
You know, and so having that idea is now how can I then serve him? I can be with believers. I can pour into my local church, you know, whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I appreciate you for coming to sit down and have a conversation with me. I'm glad we had this conversation. I'm glad that you're a part of my community, somebody that I can call a true friend that I can come to, somebody I can talk to. I know we don't get to see each other a ton because you live over 2 hours away, but I appreciate you sacrificing your part of your. I said Saturday. It's not even Saturday. I got my days confused. Part of your Tuesday.
We're kind of we're in the holiday period, so every day is a Saturday right now.
I'm confused. But thank you for sacrificing part of your day to come be with me.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right.